Have you missed it? Like, do you guys think, oh, I should have got in on Bitcoin?
I don't spend long
5 years ago.
Bitcoin.
And Bitcoin is something that certainly a lot of people think, is going to rise as an alternative currency.
The Australian Bitcoin Podcast, presented by HardBlock.
It's not a currency, it's not money. I don't understand it.
Hey, hello, welcome to the Australian Bitcoin Podcast, episode 90, presented by HardBlock, Australia's longest running Bitcoin-only exchange. My name's DJ, we got Mike and Santo in the house this fortnight.
How we going?
Good, mate. How you guys going?
Not too bad.
Very good.
DJ. Very well, Mike. Good to be with you guys.
It's good to have you, man. It's real good to have you. You've been blowing up a little bit on Twitter this week, which is cool. We'll get to that in a sec. It's the 5th of June. We're recording this on the 5th of June. Block height 899,859. Price is currently 162,033 AUD or 105 US. It was a 2.7% fall in the last 7 days, so a bit dramatic. Maybe it's all over. Maybe we'll just have to settle with this and, deal with the fallout. Median house price in Australia and all capital cities, it's up. It hit just around $1 million median house. It's currently 911,567, or in Bitcoin terms, it's 5.62 BTC, which is pretty tasty. Realized monetary inflation of Bitcoin 0.84%, taking inflation, the Australian dollar, to school. And the last inflation print, if you can believe it, 2.4%. So, it's been a bit of a busy fortnight.
If we can believe it.
If we can believe it. Yeah, let's get to that. But first, we had the Bitcoin conference over in Vegas at the Venetian. That was a pretty big event, happened to coincide with the Oslo Freedom Forum as well. We'll get that out. I saw a tweet actually by a Wayslice on Nostr, who was at the Oslo Freedom Forum, and he was looking at, the live stream from the Venetian, from the Bitcoin conference, and he just happened to mention that those two events couldn't have been more poles apart. You had the Bitcoin conference, which was all about number go up, and the Oslo Freedom Forum, which was all about why we Bitcoin in the first place. I just wanted to sort of get that out there. But I did watch some of the speakers, some of the events at Bitcoin 2025 in Las Vegas. I've got a few of, my choice talks, keynote speeches and things like that I saw. But I do want to give a shout out to the Bugle. I think they did one of the best events at Bitcoin 2025 with their Satirize the System, which I was watching on a live stream. So I had the Bitcoin conference live streaming, I had the Bugle event live streaming, and then I think I was watching Tunester. They were doing like a gig, a value for value gig over in Nashville. It was at Vegas, and it was kind of like being at the event without having to pay for a ticket and a flight and all of that nonsense. So it was good.
You didn't want to book a flight and get over there, mate? Didn't want to give Vegas the old visit?
Not this time, man. Not this time.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's like, you always wanted to go to one of these, like the biggest Bitcoin conference each year, but it seems like, and it's becoming more and more true, that it's losing a bit of the original magic that a lot of older Bitcoiners will mention, with it being more smaller scale, more intimate. And now all the suits are here, all the politicians are here, all the big institutions are here, and it's obviously changing. And so there's been a lot of critique of the old conference, and it's getting even more heated this year. And it must be said, there was a large political presence there, for good and bad, and so it is changing.
Yeah, it is changing, and I mean, that's just kind of the way culture moves, right? You have to kind of evolve with it. It's all about the pump. I can imagine back in the day, if you were, let's say, down at the Cavern Club and you happened to catch the Beatles playing on a Wednesday night, and you're like, holy shit, this band is incredible. Wow, this is amazing. And then a few years later, they're doing Ed Sullivan, and they blow up and become the biggest band in the world. And you're like, oh, my favorite band, man. They're not as cool as they used to be. You know, the same thing happens with grunge and Nirvana and like all of that counterculture stuff. It all exists on a timeline. There's a really good article actually called Geeks, Mops and Sociopaths, which is all about subculture evolution and how it sort of has a step function, and it just plays out every single time. And I think Bitcoin is just going through that, and it's like you kind of have to just deal with that, really. Like if you want to hold it on as a collectible, a cool trinket, something to talk about at meetups, and that's about it, well, you're not going to make it. It's going to be the global monetary network, and so with that comes trade-offs, and it may be that, you know, the sociopaths and the suits, they come in and they make it less cool. It just is what it is.
The way of the world.
I think it's just a part of the adoption curve. I think for most assets, though, it'll bring in these suits. I think it's inevitable that they come through and start to get, you know, put their fingers in the pie. And, you know, to be honest, like from that 10,000 to 100,000, I think we all need to pat ourselves on the back. All the ones that stuck fat and stuck around to, you know, take the industry or the asset to that market cap. But I think from that 2 trillion now to hit that 10 trillion, sadly, we need the suits, I think, to get there. Oh, they will help. You know, they will help. As long as they're all there for the right reasons as well. Because based on, you know, the theme of I'm not sure if you guys noticed, but the theme for the Bitcoin Vegas, there was the word lending getting thrown around quite a bit.
Stable coins,
like
they were mentioned quite a lot as well. Yeah,
there was a mashup of those, and there's a great Twitter handle. You know, Wicked, the Bitcoin. I think it's
WS. Yep.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, I put a post up like if you take these if you take this opportunity to lend, and then give them Bitcoin, you take the money, but then buy more Bitcoin with that, and lend again and buy more Bitcoin. You're sort of buying Bitcoin today with the lending product, and then at some point you pay back that fiat amount. But in the future, you I guess you withdraw your original collateral, and now you're holding more Bitcoin. So it's an interesting take.
Yeah, but it also seems like a fast way to blow yourself up as well, in my humble opinion.
Like, it's scary to even think that the word lending was like the second or third most common word of Vegas. But anyway.
It depends. Like, yeah, that's a whole other rabbit hole. I saw Sonny Poe post something on Twitter about that. He was maxing out approximately 18 credit cards, I'm pretty sure it was. And he was, you know, kicking that can down the road, just playing the state playbook effectively, but just as an individual. So, I mean, look, yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. I think it's, you know, buy spot Bitcoin, take it into self-custody, especially if you're in Australia and you're doing it with HardBlock. That's the way to do it. But yeah, so at the conference, one of the cool things, and we'll get to our favorite talks in a moment, but I noticed that Uncle Rockstar from BTC Pay Server and I think even Square were involved in this, where they wanted to put Bitcoin to the ultimate test and make an official attempt to break the Guinness World Record title for the most Bitcoin point of sale transactions in 8 hours, which they achieved. It was just over 4,000 transactions taking place. Pretty sure it happened on day one. And I thought that was really cool. Like, you know, a lot of people, the store of value narrative is quite popular at the moment, and there's no doubt about it. That's kind of the order of operations here. But to see Bitcoiners at the conference spending their Bitcoin, using it to buy things, and obviously they're buying hot dogs or, you know, soggy sandwiches or whatever, like they're going to be very expensive one day. But it's kind of the whole point, right? It's Laszlo ad infinitum, you know?
Yes, and it is an interesting statistic. Little, like, you might look at it and be like, oh, 4,000 transactions, big whoop. But you got to remember that this is tangible, in-person, physical goods transfer. This isn't, you know, your online you know, investments and gaming transactions and little things moving back and forth on various cryptocurrency tokens, not just Bitcoin. This is flesh and blood people in the real world exchanging physical goods and services using Bitcoin rails. So it is still a good achievement, even though it isn't the most insane number in the world. You got to remember that it has that physical element to it. So it is still breaking new ground in terms of the technology being brought into the real world, which is what matters to capture the hearts and minds of, you know, normies that don't really understand what we're doing here just yet.
What do you reckon, Santo? You spending Bitcoin?
I'm spending it where I can. I recently paid my developer in Bitcoin. He's from Pakistan. He's been helping with the website development, and he was on one of those third party. I won't name the name of the freelance website that I found him through. We've been in a relationship for about 12 months now, and he was actually quite sick and took about a month off work. So I asked for his WhatsApp phone number. We've been dealing directly through WhatsApp. And look, I offered to pay him in Bitcoin so he wouldn't have to pay that, I guess, commission to that third-party platform. And at the time, again, money was pretty important. He's going through this health issue. And his reply was, you know what? I'm working on a Bitcoin website. I think it's about time I learn Bitcoin. And I posted the transaction. I think it's great. And kudos to him as well for, you know, accepting it. You know, Pakistan looks like he's from Bangladesh, sorry, not Pakistan, Bangladesh. But it looks like Pakistan in most recent weeks is now exploring that strategic reserve as well. I'm not sure how thorough that has gone through, but it looks like that conversation has started in Pakistan.
Yeah, that was Bilal bin Saqib, I think. But, I mean, that was like an announcement of an announcement. It was kind of like Nigel Farage talking about an SPR in the UK. It's kind of like, yeah, but, you know, you can't do it now, so, like, why are we talking about it? Announcements of announcements of announcements. They're kind of the flavor of the day, aren't they? But, so a couple of talks that I really dug from the conference was Arthur Hayes. His keynote, The Math Behind $1 Million, I thought that was really interesting. The fact that that $1 million trajectory actually isn't that difficult when you actually lay out the math. I thought that was really interesting. Safe had a really great talk about Bitcoin and Tether and sort of the dollar milkshake theory, folding all of that into, you know, the conference. Lynn Alden's Nothing Stopped This Train. I think it's baffling to me. I've tried to send that to a few people that are very interested in macro to see if like that scratches an itch, like causes an itch for them to scratch, you know. And just again crickets, and it's like the charts and the signal that was in that talk in particular was pretty fire, you know. So I think those were sort of the three. I also like the Steak and Shake prayers. That was very short and sharp. But Dan Edwards, who's the COO of Steak and Shake, it's like this is like almost 100-year franchise in America, and they're pushing the progression by adopting Bitcoin as a means of payment in their stores is pretty incredible. And you know, maybe we should bring a Steak and Shake to Australia. I wouldn't be adverse to it.
I could tell they won you over with the dancing cows in costume. That was probably what's turned you into a Steak and Shake fanboy.
The dancing cows and the tallow fries.
Very good. Yeah, I mean there were lots of good speeches, lots of good, quite a few announcements that are quite interesting. You mentioned Farage before, so he was at the conference as well. He gave a little bit of a speech. He's obviously trying to capture the hearts and minds of Bitcoiners, at least over in the UK, to support his push for his new political party reform. And for anyone interested, they're doing pretty well. You know, they've kicked some goals. They had a county election in England in May, and they had a resounding victory there. Now it's coming up to some Welsh and Scottish parliamentary elections coming up, and they're hoping to make some gains there. But yeah, during his speech, he mentioned, you hinted at it before, but a strategic Bitcoin reserve at the Bank of England, which is interesting considering the dead of snakes that is in the history of the Bank of England. You know, some say that it's the source of a lot of the fiat garbage that we're dealing with today. So injecting Bitcoin into the heart of that, you know, could it purify them? Probably not, but still an interesting talking point. And he mentioned a Bitcoin bill as well that he wants to bring in if they take power, basically stopping things like debanking, which has happened to him and has happened to a lot of Bitcoiners over there. Capping capital gains on Bitcoin to 10%, which is an interesting one. You know, ideally it's 0, but 10% is better than 30%, 40%, right? Fair taxation, maybe. So yeah, he's got some interesting points that he made there. I thought it was somewhat illuminating as to what he's going for.
And I wasn't up to date with his chat. So, is he a candidate for their next election, or is he?
Well, he's hoping to become the PM, the next PM in England. I'm not sure when they're, or in the UK rather. Not sure when their big election is, so it would actually put him in if he does continue kicking goals. But yes, that's what he wants to do. He wants to get reform as the leading seat holder in the UK and him to be prime minister. So he made some big claims that he's going to be the next PM. So we'll see if that eventuates.
Yeah, I mean, he had some pretty good success back in the day with Brexit, and he's always been a bit of a thorn in the side of the political system over there, which is, you know, it's good to see. But, you know, his track record is mostly amounting to just poking the bear, and, you know, there's not really any tangible outcomes. You know, they just recently had an election and they voted in another communist. So, you know, I'll believe it when I see it is kind of my take on that whole thing.
The other speech that I thought was quite good was, well, not really a speech, more like an announcement of Square taking Bitcoin payments using their terminals, that's incredible. That's really underrated for just Bitcoin adoption and usage around the world, because obviously Square, massive player in the retail point of sale space, and for them to just have a switch you can flip to start accepting Bitcoin payments at all their terminals worldwide. I think they've got like 1.7 million or something merchants around the world using them now. And for them to just include Bitcoin by default, and even to the point where I think it's going to be at a point where people can just pay with Bitcoin at the point of sale terminal, whether the company kind of realizes it or not. That merchant may not actually, you know, realize what they're doing, but a user will just be able to pay in Bitcoin, and then the back end just works it out. So it's not even like the merchant itself has to be orange pilled and understand Bitcoin. If someone wants to pay in Bitcoin, they can pay in Bitcoin, and Square just kind of manages the back end for them. So it's like a really underrated announcement that they've made here, and I think it's going to do massive steps towards global adoption of Bitcoin.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a few primary producers and farmers down at the local farmers market that I go to, and they have Square POS terminals. Yep. And, you know, I've been niggling at them, you know, like, would you accept Bitcoin? One of them actually has. At one point, I think I bought like a bunch of carrots. I haven't seen him in a while, but maybe he's retired off that bunch of carrots. I don't know.
They're looking to. I mean, they haven't implemented that in Australia yet, because we you know, did look into that as well, which I thought was super exciting that they're accepting Bitcoin in the US. Yeah, it'd be great if they could implement that in Oz, because there really is a lack of that type of rail in Oz. Like, unless you're running your own server on BTC Pay server, or maybe using Bankful, they're quite expensive though. They've got a pretty high fee. Yep. So, you know, if Square could implement that, like as you guys said, there's Square little terminals at every market, like every craft market, and in every community has these little Square terminals. You go to Bunnings, you buy your sausage, they got a Square terminal there. So I think it's a really great move if they can implement that in Oz, and hopefully our regulators don't make it too tricky for them.
Are you looking for a simple way to buy Bitcoin in Australia? HardBlock makes buying Bitcoin easy. As Australia's longest running Bitcoin exchange, our mission is to help Aussies simply and easily buy Bitcoin and take it into self-custody. There are no deposit or trading fees, just a clear 1.2% spread whenever you buy or sell, lol. That covers our operating costs, so you always know exactly what you're paying. Withdrawals at just $1.18 AUD or as low as 400 sats with AutoSend. No hidden charges, no surprises, just a fast, reliable, and easy way to stack sats with total transparency. Get started today at hardblock.com.au. Bitcoin made easy for Aussies.
So, speaking of the Australian economy, the numbers came out just yesterday on the 4th. Australia's economy grew by a modest 0.2%. Now, I know that this is a Bitcoin podcast, but this is kind of framing and contextualizing everything that we're kind of talking about, because I'm sure all of us on Twitter here, or anyone that is on Twitter here that follows some of the macro bros that are constantly whinging and complaining that house prices are too high, eggs cost too much, etc., or even the fact is just a general state of the economy. So it grew by a modest 0.2% in the first quarter of 2025, falling short of economists' expectations. They're expecting 0.4%. Hold on to your hats, boys. Sluggish growth down from 0.6% in the previous quarter was driven by, they reckon, weaker public spending and weather-related disruptions to mining, tourism, and shipping. I want to know if Santo knows how much money they printed in Q1. Maybe you have that data to hand. I don't know. But anyway, the point is that decline marked a continued per capita recession in this country, and we're not allowed to call it a recession yet, are we? Because we've changed the rules, I'm pretty sure. But effectively, the Australian economy is in the toilet, which we've already known for a long, long time. But if you contrast that with the property market, well, that's just pumping right now. And we've just reached a median house price of exceeding 1 million, as reported by Domain, across Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Canberra, and Adelaide. Adelaide joined the $1 Million Club in March 2025, driven by a persistent housing shortage and strong demand fueled by population growth and migration. Sydney's median house price is nearing 1.7 million, while Perth is projected to hit 1 million by 2026. So Perth is lagging behind, but effectively, the economy's in the toilet, but property prices are soaring, which is awesome. And then that leads me to this tweet that you had earlier in the week, Santo, on the financials of your investment property. So, I don't know, maybe you guys can comment on the state of the economy, the numbers that we saw yesterday with regards to GDP, property prices flying, and then we'll get to Santo's tweet.
Yep.
Yeah, well, it's not looking good, and it's, you said it there in the statistics. It's in the toilet, but it's propped up by migration. That is what's keeping up the demand for dollars, the demand for mortgages, which is saving us from complete ruin, but only really if you are lucky enough to have a property to benefit from that price accumulation in the property market. So it's not good. We're not making things. We're not producing things. We're just it's the classic, dig stuff out of the ground and send it overseas. Agriculture is getting smashed with some unfortunate weather that we're getting, and geopolitical events worldwide that just keep disrupting things. But we just keep pushing things along by just bringing more people in and keeping that demand for housing and mortgages high, which is just keeping us sort of lurching forward.
Quantitative peopling, I think, is what Rational Aussie has called it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And yeah, so Santo, you have a story to tell around an investment property thing, which sort of led to a bit of an epiphany, I think, for yourself.
Yeah, I'll share two, I guess, experiences in that asset class. I think on this, and as well with the GDP, and as what you guys already touched on, we're not really producing anything here. And the other alarming side to this as well is, well, much of the funding the government is spending is NDIS, Medicare, clean energy like solar and battery. I mean, I've got nothing against any of that stuff, but it's there is a large chunk of the population that relies upon government subsidy.
Yeah,
and it's not just the government workers, the one in every 5 people that works for the government. It's all the subsidies that they also pay for. So again, NDIS, there's a bunch of people that don't directly work for the government, but they're employed due to the government spending. Medicare, so you look at Medicare and healthcare. So honestly, like every hospital, doctor, etc., there's some sort of trail of the government spending or money printing in these fields. There's clean energy. So manufacturing's gone. Where could we really turn to grow the economy? It goes back to our commodities like energy resume, the coal, the iron ores, etc. But the problem there is so many of those projects have been leased out for 100 years to Chevron and all these big corporate international companies. So it's not the greatest look for GDP wise, and the GDP per capita year on year is still negative. So we've had two now negative years, 1%, and we just missed negative 0.003% year on year with the per capita. So it's that's alarming. So for 2 years straight, we haven't grown as an economy.
The thing for me, man, is that it's not so much me personally, although it is, it does affect you, I guess directly, indirectly, whatever. It's more like play this out over the next 10 years, 20 years, when if you've got kids and they've grown up. What kind of opportunity have they got? Like, there used to be a time when it was desirable and an honourable thing to start a small business. People love to go to the Adelaide markets and go through all of the store holders that are down at the Adelaide markets, and it's beautiful and it's quaint and they've got interesting things and knickknacks and delicious food and all this sort of stuff. Every single one of them are small businesses. And it's just a real pain in the ass nowadays to actually be a small business, to start a small business. There's so much friction that is just, you run the numbers and you just think, forget it. Like earlier this year, we're going to open up a business. It was going to cost us 30 grand just to get a checkbox approval from the council, just to say yes or no. We have to spend the 30 grand and then it goes to the council and they can just either say yes or no. And this blows my mind. So the thing is, people love all of these quaint small businesses that make a thriving city and a culture within a city and a town. And yet, as you said, 1 in 5 people work for the NDIS or a variation of that. And it's like, play that out. What happens to the richness of a country that when everyone just works for the state, basically,
Yeah, it's bureaucratic largesse, and then when you've got 1 in 5 people working for the government or some kind of publicly funded entity, you got to create busy work for these people, or they make it for themselves, and that's just creating more red tape and barriers to people that actually want to produce things, start businesses, make things, sell it overseas, whatever. The bureaucratic class has burgeoned to such an extent that we're just saddled with this. We're chained to these people now that are justifying their existences and justifying their publicly funded salaries, and it's just limiting our production and limiting our ability to pull ourselves out of it. So it's we're spiraling, and I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah, so talk to me about this tweet of yours, Santo, because it blew up, man. It's sitting at like 24,500 views, since June 2nd. That was only a couple of days ago. I saw that even Uncle Rockstar retweeted it, and Stefan Levera and a few others. There's a fair bit of signal in this tweet, so maybe just spell it out for our listeners.
Yeah, I think it drives the story home for most people that are, I guess, trying to buy a home, but also worried about like what's actually included or what am I up for, really. And look, I've been a part of property for the 15 odd years in and out with there was a family trust that turned pear-shaped. Geez, that was a mess. Like, I haven't shared that story yet. That was a mess. And I then paid my way out of that to then buy this property on my own. I was like, you know what, I'm not going to join any more trusts with family because that's risky. And we purchased this property 7 kilometers from the city through a buyer's advocate who was a pro at the area. I was working offshore at the time, so I wasn't able to attend auctions and private, private sales. So I just paid this advocate to go and look for some properties, and they would provide us a book of, this is what we're looking at, these are the comparison sales. When you're back, go have a look, let us know what you think, and we'll bid accordingly. And it's in a great spot, 7 kilometers from the city. Trains, trams, buses, massive shopping centre, I think it's the 3rd largest shopping centre in Australia. University, hospital. At the time, an old hospital. They've built a brand new hospital there in the last 2 years. It has all of the boxes. You could tick every single box. It's got a professional AFL football team that have their stadium and training facilities there. So there's a basketball court, there's swimming pools, there's everything, you name it, they've got it. And it was rated as, at the time, in 2016, by the way, just as a bit of a clue of where this area is, a suburb, the AFL team won the premiership that year. Mm-hmm. And we received the keys to this property the day of the premiership. So the place was going wild. And my wife, I remember, she was so happy. She was like, this is we've just done so well here. We worked so hard to buy this property. The team's won. The area's gone absolutely wild. This is the best. And okay, so fast forward to where we are in 2022. And, I was shitcoining between 17 to 20, red gold, the Bitcoin standard 2018. Anyway, fast forward, started to really dig into Bitcoin. And we had just got this lingering property that's sending rates notices every year for $2,500. Land tax for $1,000 that kept on going up every year. Tenants that would move out, I'd have to put another tenant in. Tenants destroying the place. I had one VCAT submission. There was 3 property managers that I went through because some of them weren't getting back to me. So in 2023, after really digging, we need to get rid of this thing and just put it out. What we've got left over, because it wasn't a massive profit on this property, as you've probably seen in the post. Whatever we've got left over, let's just park into Bitcoin and let's not even worry about this anymore. It was a tough decision for my wife, because when you work so hard for something and you've held it for so long and it hasn't really produced what you were hoping it would produce, you start to, hang on to that and think, what, maybe we're only 1 year away of it actually working out for us. And it was a tough decision for her. It was super easy for me. I've slept like a baby since it's been gone. I do not miss 1 second of it. But it's a tale of the real numbers. I've put together, and to be honest, I could have made that number worse, because I didn't even include the renovate, the money that we spent to try and put the property on the market. That cost me $10,000 in fixing the place, fixing all the broken cupboards, fixing, painting the place. The gardening, all that sort of stuff all adds up. And that negative gearing loss of $50,000, that is after the tax benefits of negatively gearing it every year. So that $4,000 I would make back in my tax, I'm making $4,000 back on my tax, but I lost $14,000 that year. You know what I mean?
Take us through the numbers, because you've done that on the chart there, on the tweet. 2016 to 2024, you purchased it for $690,000. Sale price was $829,000. Agent commission $15,000 for a grand total of $814,000 Australian. Take us through. You made a net profit of what, $124,000. I don't know. I'll let you do it.
Oh, let's go through it. So paid $690 for it back in 2016 in November or September. It was before the grand final, so around that time. So $690,000 back then. It was an investment property, and I didn't apply for the first home buyers grant. And that was an important part about this, because that's why the stamp duty was so high. So as an investment property, there was no concession. And it was above the threshold as well. I think at the time the stamp duty concession was, up to $600,000 for the property. We were slightly above that. So we paid the full whack of the stamp duty of $36,470. There was conveyancer, so about $2,000 to buy. So there was $1,400 for the base conveyancer fee. And then you've got all your disbursements and all the stuff that they add on top of that, their fees, etc. Say $2,000 for that, and then your fees. The buyer's advocate at the time, as I mentioned, I was working away, $11,000 for her service. So you look at those startup fees. So it's about 50 grand out, like straight from get go. You buy it for 690, but you're already 50 grand in the red. Now you look at all the expenses. So, and I will put this. I will thoroughly break down year on year in a blog, and I will post that year on year because I know there was quite a few people in the comments that said, why is this number looking like that? I don't pay that for mine. I get it. You might not pay for yours. I'm showing you what I paid for mine. And I'll break down year on year so you can see those figures. I'm going to be fully transparent with this because I think it's important. So you look at all those numbers, rates every year, 2.5 grand, taxes, insurances, leasing, agent fees, the electrical testing that came out in 2020, I think one. I'm a Sparky and I couldn't even do it myself. Like crazy. I couldn't do my own electrical gas. I couldn't do my own electrical and safety check because I didn't go and go.
You need a license for that, mate. You need a special sub license class B 4C for that one, mate.
Exactly. Like I've been a Sparky for 15 years. I couldn't even do a safety check on my own house that I wired up. Right. Anyway, so that was $600. So I wasn't going to do a course because the course was like 2.5 grand. So I'm like, you know what? Just pay someone to do it. So, which I think is crazy if I really think about it right now. Like, how bonkers is this country that a professional A-grade electrician cannot even work the safety check on a smoke alarm because I don't have the course for it. Like,
and the piece of paper back you up.
And the piece of paper. Whatever. So $600 a year for that. So anyway, you work it all out. The total expenses over the 7.5 or 8 years that we had it was about $103,000 in outgoings, and we made $124,000 in profit after our commission to the agent. So we're left with about $20,151 in realized gain. Now that doesn't even factor in inflation. Like $20,000 in 20. Guys, like honestly, this is a joke. Like it actually, like I read it again and I get like really upset about this. $20,000 in 2016. What does it buy you today? Like the $20,000 car in 2016, brand new, like fast forward today, they're 50 grand. $20,000 back then in whatever, like anything that devalues, like you just haven't got that purchasing power again. So let's say I had that 20 grand, I wanted to move it over to a new investment as a deposit. That 20 grand is not going to get me anywhere, right? So that's frustrating to even look at those numbers. And you break that down over the year, so that's $2,800 in profit a year. Over the value of the property was worth 800, as we see, 829. That's only a 0.42% return. So, okay, how much did we put into the deposit? We put $140,000 in back in 2016. So 20,000 over my initial deposit is 14% return, and that's like, oh, that's not too bad, but it's over 7 years or 8 years, so the annual return is like 2% or 3%. It's horrible. So that was a horrible experience. We won't be involved in ever again. But the reason I share the story is I'm finding, I guess, with this club and what's working to orange pill the people around me and mates and whatever, the property story is really hitting home. And that's probably why so many people have shared and liked that post. It's a real story. And the other thing as well, I've worked in a financial planning in the industry. I've got a diploma in financial planning, and I've worked as a paraplanner, writing statements of advice for my manager in this industry for mortgages and investment strategies back in 2017, the year after I bought this property. And even more, I'm not going to speak for all of them, but mortgage brokers and these strategies of that, it's okay. Negative gear, you're paying tax. It's fine. Like, you're already paying the tax, you're going to get a little rebate, a refund. But you're running at a loss. Guys, you're running at a loss every year. Why would you want to run at a loss for if you could buy Bitcoin that has none of these outgoings? You're not going to. The best part about Bitcoin is you receive no mail. You don't receive any mail. of a rates notice saying you owe the cancel $2,500. Like my mailbox, I could throw my mailbox away now, because the only reason I should receive anything is my energy bill, which comes through digitally, and anything else. But I shouldn't receive any crap stuff from, because the cancel aren't digitally sending you cancel rates; they're still analog.
Did you run the numbers? Hypothetically, had you have discovered Bitcoin, figured it out back then in 2016, and chucked that deposit in?
Don't do that. Too depressing.
Well, let's do it.
Depressing.
I have done it, because it's why not do it, right? Why not throw it into a calculator and
save your mental health
and see how everything's tracking. So if I bought in the same month, so October 2016, if I put $200 into Bitcoin, I would have today had 20,000, that net profit. I would have had the same amount of money. If I slammed all of our 140,000, and not to say that I would have held it that whole time, because again, I've only really started to really string on to the importance of Bitcoin from 2020, 19, 20, 21. I'd be sitting on 25 properties worth. I'd be sitting on 17, 18, 19 mil of Bitcoin. So it's a frustrating one to look at. I try not to look at these tables. I literally post and ghost.
Yeah, you got to put it out of your head. But what I was thinking when I was watching your when I read through your tweet, I was constantly thinking about, there's numbers there, but the time commitment and just the agony of having to manage all these moving parts around this investment property is just it's an insane amount of time. Whereas with Bitcoin, you obviously you just buy it and forget about it, put in cold storage and get on with your life and take that time back. There is a financial component to your time, obviously, because you can think about money and store of value and stuff as a store of your time, your cognizant ability to generate wealth and bring value to the world. It gets transposed into money, and there is a time component to organizing these investments and stuff, which you get all that time back if you just take the orange pill and take the easier path.
Spot on. And I'm glad you brought that up, because as a handyman, Sparky, whatnot, any of the issues at the property when the tenants were not happy with, or something wasn't working, dishwasher wasn't working, I'd go and fix it myself.
Yeah.
And we're living about 1 hour away in terms of our location where we live now. And that was the final, I guess, the hurrah for us, where I said to Jeanette, let's just get rid of this thing. Let's put it on the market, whatever it sells for. And, we sold it at the soft market as well. Last year was pretty soft for the property market. And the reason we pulled the pin was in January last year, I got called back because the dishwasher wasn't working. I went over, pulled this dishwasher apart, couldn't get this thing going again, so I bought a new dishwasher. Installed this new dishwasher. 2 weeks later, the door wasn't locking. So and by the way, this house was an old property. It was a 100-year-old property, beautiful looking property, and it had been we'd renovated it. But there's still, it's a 100-year-old property. Like there's still these little teething things that happen. And I'd go drive back again, all the way back there. You're right, Mike. Like the time it took is not even in that post to go and repair all these issues and make sure the tenants were just, had everything above and beyond, internet, connections, phone connections, it's like there's no, landlords have no power anymore. Like the power is in the tenant. The tenant has all the, and I get that. It's they're living in the home, and I appreciate that. Like I'd love to, I've been a tenant before as well, and living in properties that weren't probably the safest places for the kids to be living in. Like there was, broken stairs and whatnot. So I sort of appreciate that side of a tenant. But you're right, like the time to go in there and fix everything, like it's you can't even quantify that. I'd have to put work out a logbook to work.
That's the thing that Bear's not thinking about, the time pissed away and wasted. It's nuts. I mean, it's a great tweet, and it's actually in a line of other excellent tweets. I always enjoy seeing a BTC Club tweet come across my Twitter feed, because I always tend to learn a lot of stuff, particularly from an Australian point of view. And I want to come back around to that just before we wrap up. But quick fire, Locate Technologies, an ASX-listed company, announced that it will be running a bit of a MicroStrategy or a strategy playbook by putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet. they announced, what is it? So Locate Technologies, they're listed on the Australian Stock Exchange. It's a small cap. It's under 20 million. I think it's about 19.6 at last look. Basically, it says that it's transforming last mile delivery with AI-powered solutions that optimize route planning and enhance real-time visibility for businesses globally. So they are integrating Bitcoin into their treasury strategy, building a long-term reserve to support future acquisitions and global expansion. It's cool because we hear a lot of Bitcoin treasury companies coming from other countries outside of Australia. So this is the first within Australia, which is great. You can look them up on the ASX. The ticker is LOC. I actually tweeted out at Bowtied Stocks, who's been getting around on Twitter lately, and I've been hassling him a little bit. But I just pointed out, like, is this a cool thing? What do you think? And his reply was, it's under a $20 million market cap. Like, I'm not even going to bother with it. And I was like, okay, all right, cool. Like, I thought this might be a way in, whatever. I don't even know why I bothered, to be honest. But what was interesting is that when they made the announcement, there was a sharp rise in the share price. It moved almost 40% over the week, trading up to 11 cents from 6 cents, and then it's corrected back down to around 8 cents. So, not quite strategy yet, not quite Metaplanet, but it's a proxy. It's certainly there.
They're on the path. They're on the path.
And if I wasn't so damn enamored with Bitcoin, I might buy a little bit. But yeah. Anyway, what are your thoughts, boys?
What is interesting? There's now I did read a statistic recently. There's something like 180 large multinational companies that now have Bitcoin on their balance sheet and like a strategy to actually accumulate Bitcoin as part of their treasuries. So it definitely is true that the institutions are here in more ways than just policy and financial companies. There are just like stock standard businesses now that are recognizing the value of holding Bitcoin on their balance sheets and are starting to establish treasuries like this. So it's good to see an Australian company do it. Be interesting to see if any of the bigger market cap Australian companies start to do it. They've definitely got deep pockets. The big four banks, Combank's market cap is insanely higher than it should be. It's sitting at 300 billion market cap for a bank with a country with 27 million people. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. But anyway, some of these big players might eventually start to follow suit. But yeah, it's up to the little guys to set the path sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's it. And like they actually become the second Australian listed stock to hold Bitcoin. The first one was actually DCC with Digital X. Uh-huh. They've been holding 114. Now, look, they are shitcoiners. They're a fund. They do offer Ethereum, etc. as well. However, they are holding 114 Bitcoin in their treasury, and they've got 260 in total through their fund. Through exposure. They've held Bitcoin for more than 3 years. So these guys have been they're not new on the block. They've been around for a while. And their market cap currently is about 80 million for DCC. So 80 million, and they're holding 18.5 million of Bitcoin. So 23% of their business value is their treasury, which is great. I think it's a great little story there. Now, LOC, which was the old... what are they called? X2U, Zoom to You. They've been around for a few years as well. It's looking like this current cap raise was by a fund or I've got the fund name here, Kelados Investment Pty. They're the ones that bought the $1 million or gave them the $1 million, and they've received 14.2 million shares in return at 7 cents. So it's trading at 10 cents now. So they're up 30%, which is great for them already in a week. And they're holding 5% in terms of their total market cap in Bitcoin. It's an interesting model because it's a great case study, number one, because this business, if you look at the business on paper, they're not really growing. Like they're not, their market shares looks like, and their revenue looks like it's starting to creep up, but they're in a loss still. So would love to see this story and follow the story over the next 12 months to see how they actually unfold, because it's a great experiment, but also it's a use case for other businesses to say, hold on, they did it. Their revenue was sort of creeping up. They weren't making any money in terms of shareholder value, but now they are. How are they doing it? Well, they've just chosen Bitcoin. I think it's a great step.
Okay, we're going to wrap this up real soon. I couldn't leave this episode of the pod without talking about the highly regarded Senator Gerard Rennick, who on the 28th of May claimed that Bitcoin will hit $1 million because BlackRock's going to inflate its value and it's effectively a Ponzi scheme. And this is probably one of the more fun times I've had on Twitter, just looking at all the replies. And just seeing it. This is a very familiar story. Person comes out, bags Bitcoin, says that it's like pizza, and if you divide it by whatever, it's it's a Ponzi, etc., etc. All the Bitcoiners rally and start tweeting out their responses. Some of them kind, some of them unkind. You get what you give, and I thought this was just a very funny thing to have happened. I don't particularly care about Senator Rennick or his political party. I don't particularly care about any political party, to be quite honest. But he jumped into the fire, and he just doubled down the whole damn time. What were you guys thinking when you were reading this tweet?
Well, so I'll be transparent. So I felt a bit betrayed by old mate Rennick, and it's a shame he's just yesterday put out a video saying how he's lost his Senate seat to Malcolm from the One Nation Party. So unfortunately he's lost his Senate seat, but he is going to keep in the fray. He's going to keep building his People First party. But I'll be transparent. I voted for him. I saw Rennick People First on the thing, and I was like, oh yeah, and I've seen a bunch of his tweets, and he's generally got good understanding of some of the problems that many of the problems that Australia is facing. And so yeah, I put him down for as much as that tokenistic action of voting really matters in the scheme of things in Australia. And then to see him, and people can have their opinions and they can share what they think about things. I'm not gonna fault anyone for having an opinion on something, and it's free speech and all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. But for him to have such a opinion, and then when he was challenged on it, he then doubled down again and again and again. And I thought that I had this naive hope that maybe Rennick was going to be a politician that would actually engage with his voter base, because I'm sure a lot of other Bitcoiners thought that his policies were quite sensible and did vote for him. And then for him to have this pretty crap opinion of Bitcoin, but then to double down rather than engage with people who would otherwise be his voting base, instead of engaging with them. And actually, if he could show a moment of humility and show that a politician can change their mind on something based on interaction with the public, that would actually turn into a massive win for him. If he engaged with us, had a conversation, maybe he didn't change his opinion, maybe he did, but at least have that engagement, and then at least, let and let live rather than double and triple down. Is just he's just shit the bed and rolled in it, frankly.
The intellectual dishonesty, man, that's the thing that just gets everyone offside, particularly Bitcoiners, because they're just like, look, I get it, you might be learning about this thing. Could you at least just be a little bit more humble and ask a question? Just ask a question, and then we'll start the conversation. But yeah, that doubling down, man, and the sheer intellectual dishonesty is disappointing.
Oh, I got kids in the room. Sorry, guys. Hey, boys.
Got some visitors.
They've come home from school to jump in the. Sorry, DJ.
No, man, it's all good. I'll actually edit that. I'll crush that in a little bit. So if you want to just give us your take.
Yep, cool. I think his values, and I'll put my hand up as well. I did vote for them after the Libertarians, and a lot of his values and I guess direction where he wanted to take the country were sensible. Yeah, there's so much that we can align to, but that was the shit canning the Bitcoin thing, and also he did sort of fluff his feathers a bit about being a treasurer and a master's degree in finance and all these different things.
Look at my degrees.
Degrees. That's great. But you can go speak to some of the best economists in the world, and I think Tim, I can't remember his name, the professor from Harvard, 25 years. Tim's, I can't remember. Anyway, 25 years in Harvard. And he's admit that Bitcoin taught him more about money than his economic professional degree, right?
Yep.
And I think a bit of humility on RenXM would have been nice, and maybe asking more questions instead of calling it a product, saying you can't eat it. It just shows you lose him straight away, because it just shows just how much he doesn't know about the actual asset itself. And to shit can it with the other thing, with an audience like he's got a large audience, and a lot of these people trust what he says, and they voted for him. Like, people vote for him, they trust what his views. So to call it a Ponzi scheme when you're got those sort of degrees and that resume, I thought it was quite disappointing.
Yeah. No, I think the less said, the better, to be honest. I think it's had a fair amount of airtime, and, good luck to him. He can have fun staying poor. You've got a bit of a spicy take, Mike. I don't want to end on spicy takes, but I'm curious to find out, because you told me just before we jumped on air, the Russ Ulbricht speech at the Bitcoin conference. I enjoyed it. I thought it was cool. I thought, actually, I was quite impressed at just how well spoken he was for a person that's been in jail for over 10 years. He handled himself like superlatively, and his mother as well, Lynn, was getting around and doing some vox pops as well. I was yeah, man, I mean, the Ross story is just, it's egregious and disgusting, and it was just such a lovely thing to see him on the stage free, as a free man. So spicy take, ruin it for me.
Well, I mean, it's probably been said before. I haven't really seen too much people that share my opinion of it, but I agree with you. He was very well spoken, had some good things to say, and it is fairly horrific how he was treated, and getting a life sentence for in comparison to a lot of more horrific crimes that get much easier punishments. So it was very egregious how he was treated, and I am happy that he's free, and I'm happy that he seems to have turned over a new leaf, because my sort of harsh opinion is he was dealing drugs online. Well, facilitating the dealing of drugs online. And, I do tip my hat to libertarian thinking, and people should generally be able to do what they want with their money, and in some cases with their bodies as well. But at the same time, drugs and the drug trade is it's not a great thing. It's not a great world. It shouldn't be made particularly easy. I'm not.
No, I get what you're saying, and I agree. Like, there is a moral argument to the whole context of the Silk Road, but voluntarism versus coercion. I mean, if you voluntarily want to jump on and buy some drugs, I mean, what's really interesting is you hear countless Bitcoin origin stories, like from Peter McCormick, for instance, who couldn't access medical marijuana for his mother, who was dying. I don't know if it was cancer or something horrific. And, that was one of the places he turned to figure it out. So, I mean, just to sort of broad brush stroke, all drugs are bad is, I do get what you're coming from. What I'd be more interested to see is Silk Road with lightning payments.
Bring it back. Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those funny things where it's like, I just can't help but think of the dark side of these kind of, drug markets and that sort of thing, and the pain that they do cause in communities, that drugs do cause in communities. I've seen that, and I've experienced that, and so it does kind of like sour my perspective on him and what he's been through, because end of the day, he built a tool that was facilitating that. And yes, there are good things to come out of it, but at the same time, I don't think it's sending the right message to be championing a figure. Although it does seem like he has genuinely turned over a new leaf, and he is now this freedom ambassador, and he's clearly done a lot of thinking, and he's obviously a very smart, very intelligent guy, and hopefully he's going to put that smarts and intelligence to promoting Bitcoin and promoting freedom ideals worldwide now. And I guess just less of a focus on drugs, hopefully.
What do you reckon, Santo? You're on mute.
Still see there's a little mute icon in your corner.
Oh no, we've lost. We can edit this too. So
Is that
there
better?
you go. Yeah,
Sorry guys, sorry.
cut it in.
Gotcha. Look, I haven't had a chance to listen to his Vegas keynote, but I do remember the days of Silk Road. I'm wearing one of the Silk Road jumpers from Strike. It was very excited to get my hands on one of those. And look, there's probably a lot more in the weeds of his back end story, I'm sure. But at the end of the day, he's just providing a service. He's providing a website, decentralized website, really, that will open an open website or an open marketplace for trade. And he, again, as a libertarian with those values, 2 life sentences, just mind-boggling, to be honest. It's crazy.
Yeah.
People murdering and whatnot and getting less than that, and convicted. Convicted murderers are getting less than that. So
Yeah.
I think it was great that Trump stood to also stuck to what he was going to do and integrity in terms of releasing him, as he said. And look, we've got a lot in terms of the Bitcoin. We have a lot to thank in terms of Ross, because it was like the beginning of Bitcoin trade as a currency.
Yeah, right on. Well, I mean, I don't want to bring this down onto a sour note, because I think it was a positive story, and I definitely take the I don't think it was that spicy, to be perfectly honest with you, Mike. I think that's a completely rational and reasonable take. I don't think that's spicy at all. I want to thank Santo. I want to just quickly mention BTC Club. As I said, I really enjoy seeing your tweets come across my Twitter feed, because they always give me a really unique perspective from an Australian standpoint in and around Australian macro, particularly as it relates to property, as you said. That's kind of resonating with a lot with your members of the BTC Club and your followers on Twitter. So give us the 101 skinny on BTC Club.
Yeah, for sure. And we've been around for 3 years now. We've had some name changes and different pivots. We're running giveaways and making it exciting, sending live Bitcoin over YouTube streams to members, and that was fun. But I've pivoted away from that now because due to regulation, and we had our rails, payment rails shut off, and it was just a headache. Every day I woke up and there was just another problem. So, and I'm only a one man band over here with my wife. So I pulled the pin on that, and I just stuck to what do I enjoy, what do I love, and what's important to me. And what was important was just writing blogs, writing stories, tweeting about life, and stuff that I've experienced. And now I've packaged it into just a newsletter. There's a blog, there's a website now, and I just want to share the experiences and Australian data, a newsletter where you can just, as a Bitcoiner, what is it for? Well, let's say you're having that debate at work with a mate on why Bitcoin versus why real estate. What would be a great story is somebody just DMs and says, hey, I'm wrapped you wrote about this because I sent it to a mate who was shit canning Bitcoin and was talking about property. He's now read this post and now he's considering Bitcoin. That's a great result. That's the first mission. The second mission is the Bitcoin trifecta: Bitcoin node, Bitcoin signing device, and a Bitcoin miner. As a Bitcoiner holding Bitcoin, I truly believe that that's the trifecta. If we can all do our bit, run a node, go speak to Ministry of Nodes, go speak to Parman, start 9. There's plenty of nodes out there now that you plug in and play. Run a Bitcoin node, own the rules of the network. That helps secure the network. 2, a signing device, take full custody, take your Bitcoin. I mean, I know you guys are from HardBlock, but I know you guys advocate taking Bitcoin off exchanges, and you've got one of the best platforms. You make it so easy. There's no fees to do that. It's amazing. And the other thing is we don't stock these. We're all out of stock now, but a Bitcoin miner, you can get these from, I know that Bioni sells these on his shop. You can get in touch with, there's a couple of US companies that are selling these as well. We're out of stock. We've just ordered some more. Throw a Bitcoin miner on. So you've ticked all the boxes to help decentralize the network. And the other thing as well, I want to quickly shout out, CK Pool won a block today. So one of the solo miners won a block today. It was block number. It was only about 2 hours ago. And I'll give you the block number. It was block number, where are we here? Block number 899826. And CK Pool, who is an Australian who built that server, so anybody can participate as a lottery on the actual blockchain. He posted that today and shared that, and he shared the information about that miner as well, which I think is incredible. And what we would love to see is a solo miner in Australia wins a block and starts the conversation on Bitcoin mining again back in the home. So that's what we're doing at another mission at BTC Club, is just trying to get to as many of these out to the public as possible so people can. And the other thing as well, it's a really great starting point. So as a gift, I've gifted 2 of these now to mates that weren't into Bitcoin, and now they're mining Bitcoin. I think it's a great conversation to start. And it's exciting for them now, because now they're asking me questions, and they're hopping on mempool.space and asking questions about what does it mean. What does the difficulty adjustment mean? What does this mean? What does that mean? And it's just about starting that light.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Yeah, I'll put the link to the Twitter feed in the show notes, as well as to BTC Club as well, and people can sign up and read the newsletter. You always give us a great shout out. I must say thank you very much for doing that in your tweets, and you're a huge supporter of not just HardBlock but also all the other exchanges, Bitcoin only exchanges in Australia, of which there are few. But every single one of them is super high signal, super high quality. So thanks, man, for jumping on and doing that. I want to say thanks for coming on this afternoon and having a yak with Mike and I about Bitcoin from an Australian perspective. Obviously, both of us work at HardBlock, and we do our best to try and make the Australian Bitcoin podcast a high signal podcast for folks in Australia to get to know what's going on in Bitcoin from an Australian perspective. So shout out to you, Santo, for jumping on, and Mike, once again, thanks, man. It was a great rip.
No worries. Thanks, DJ. Thanks for coming, Santo.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, and thanks HardBlock as well. You guys have one of the easiest exchanges to share with somebody that's completely new to Bitcoin. Your DCAing is absolutely just so simple. And I think kudos to you guys for putting together a product that just makes it easy for Aussies to jump on and start stacking. So well done, guys. And thank you so much for having me on. As an honor.
No worries.
Thanks,
if you are interested in DCAing and starting your Bitcoin journey, go to hardblock.com.au. We have a new book that we've just released called Easy Bitcoin. Learn the basics of Bitcoin in 10 minutes or less. If you go to our Twitter bio or our Facebook or whatever, you'll find a QR code which you can scan, and it'll take you to a link to download that, and you can download a PDF version, or maybe at your local meetup they might even have some physical iterations we've been sending around Australia. So jump on to the website hardblock.com.au or our Twitter feed, check out the QR code, download Easy Bitcoin, and begin your Bitcoin journey. Boys, thank you so much. This is brilliant. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for
No
having me.
worries. Thanks, guys.
See ya.